Hey, welcome to this edition of Catch Up with ChiroTouch. We're so glad you took the time out of your schedule to tune in today. I have one of my favorite people back on for a second time, and I could not think of a better person to meet with and talk with about today's topic. And this gentleman is somebody who's inspired me from up close and from afar. And I am in a long line of people who would say the same thing. Paul, we just love you. You've been so great for our profession. And I just love your story. It's very similar to mine. You're a little bit further along on the trajectory than me, but I love it. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation. For those of you that don't know Dr. Paul, he spent pretty much the last 2.5 decades building his dream practice. And so, he has always kind of had really strong core values and really relatively clear vision, although sometimes vision has to change. We're going to talk about that. But it's been really fun to watch. And so today's topic really is how to reverse engineer your vision, your dream, and your goals so that it's a clear reality for you, not just some pipe dream. So, Paul, welcome back.
Yes. Hey, Doc. Thanks so much for having me. And thank you for honoring me and all the great compliments. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
Man.
So thank you.
It's not hard with you, buddy. I'm over this now in my life, but I used to be, my wife would say, a little bit of a pipe dreamer in terms of where I want to take the practice, where I want to take my team and stuff. But as I get older, it's become more of a reality as I've learned more about vision casting, goal setting. So can you just kind of give us a high level general differentiation between this pipe dream versus this really crystal clear vision?
I think we all start, and it's great too, but I think we all start with a little bit of a pipe dream, right? The young boy laying in the grass, grandiose visions. We see all these, people around us growing up that we look up to that had what we at the time believe were huge successes and were doing things that we'd hoped or wanted to do. And so I think that's really like the pipe dream, like, oh, you're laying in the grass and just really kind of like, oh, that in awe of somebody's successes or in awe of somebody that's, maybe doing something that you want to do. And really, a true vision, our true vision needs to really align with your core values of who you are as a human being, the reason you were put here on this planet to make an impact, and what's on your heart. Like sometimes, the pipe dream is just things and stuff that we see. It's the feel good, right? Oh, I think it'd be great to, whatever that person is doing. I think I'd like to live that life. But if you start pursuing, somebody else's dream or somebody else's life, really it's not aligned with who you are, and as a human, as a child of God, as your spirit, it's just not aligned with you. And I personally have experienced like doing a little bit of that, and you just really never get there. You never feel fulfilled, never feel confident, never feel satisfied. And really when it's your true vision, like, and things really start to unfold and things will naturally align and fall into place through the relationships you build and through, again, a congruency with who you want to be as a human and the things that you're teaching and preaching and telling the story about. And so I think really that a true vision is really it has to align with your core values and being congruent with who you are as a person. That's really to me, that's the difference. So.
Yeah. And I've run into this lately with some docs I've been consulting with. When I hear core values, that kind of personally wraps into my purpose as a practitioner, as a chiropractor, as a leader. And so give me some, if you would, some real world examples of what you've seen in others. No specific names, obviously, but
Yeah.
Where you felt like they were incongruent a little bit. Maybe they got away from their core values and their true purpose. Give us some examples of how that might play out.
Yeah, I think, in our profession, there's a lot of shiny, flashy things that people get attracted to, right? And we've all been there and we've all done that. And we've all pursued those things, and those things didn't help the practice financially, didn't help us help more people. And so I think that really getting to the core of who you are and who you want to be is really aligning with your vision and serve that, right? Do what you were placed here to do, like what is on your heart, what it goes back to your, unfortunately, too many chiros, we get into practice and we've lost sight of our original calling into chiropractic, like that original vision of why you wanted to go to what did you not choose to do? I just heard this weekend. What did you not choose to do to become a chiropractor? Because you could have done, or we could have done lots of things in our life that would have made us a lot of money, made us successful, all the accolades that we could have wanted. But we chose to ignore, we chose to backdoor and backseat those things to become a chiropractor, which isn't easy. You had to spend lots of money to go to school, not only your undergrad, but then, professional school, chiropractic school, and then, a loan to open a practice and all the things that come with it. And so when you're true to your alignment, congruency, vision, those things, it's easy to get up. It's easy to pay off the debt. It's easy to do the things that are uncomfortable because it aligns with you. And if we start chasing some shiny objects that don't align with us, it just gets harder. We're off purpose. Then it's not fun, and then everything's a struggle. And then we get grumpy, and then we bring that home, and then we have troubles in relationships and all those things. But if you're truly aligned with your calling and with your purpose and your vision, I think things align naturally and easier, and you're just in a state of flow and abundance and whatnot.
Yeah, and so it sounds like really a good way to do this is when you're young in your career, or maybe even in school, is to begin to really define those core values, right? Because I know for you in your personal life and your practice life, there's a fair amount of overlap on those core values. They kind of drive every part of your life, right?
Yeah, I make all, got taught this early on, but I make all my decisions on where I want to go and what I want to do through those core values. Like they really, if it aligns with me, then I'll walk into it, entertain it before I make the decision. But if it doesn't align with my core values, it's not even a discussion for Heidi and I.
Yeah, and I was talking with a doc the other day from Arizona, and he's really struggling he feels like he kind of lost his chiro identity a little bit. And he is reverse engineering not reaching his goals, and he's looking at that, and he exposed himself and said, it's my core values, it's my purpose. I need to get back into the nitty gritty and get into the lab. And the symptom of that was something that used to creep into my life was every seminar he goes to, he buys something that he didn't intend on buying going there. He bought some guy's dinner program that was a total misfit for his personality. He bought some sort of therapeutic device that was out of his congruency as far as what kind of practitioner he was. And he was having all these symptoms. So have you kind of seen that, in your coaching and doing ChiroFest?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I was, referencing is docs will, because they admire or look up to whatever that person that had that shiny therapeutic machine, or the doc that was doing that. Hey, I signed up X amount of people delivering my dinner talk this way, or I use this instrument to make X amount of more money in my practice. But it was if it's outside your lane, outside of your core values and your vision, like it's more of a distraction, a detour, and it's sucking the life out of you, for lack of better terms.
Yes.
And it's not feeding life into you. Whereas if you're, true to your vision and your congruency, it feeds your energy, it feeds life into you, it pours, it lifts you up instead of dragging you down. And so that's why it's so important to, keep your anchor, keep that original why as close as you can. I tell the story a long time ago, that there was a gentleman that was painting stripes. And if I've shared this with you, I'm sorry, but I'll share it again, because I think it ties right into. So there was a gentleman that was painting stripes on the road as a job, a young kid. And the first day he showed up and painted, miles of yellow stripe down the road. And the foreman at the end of the day called the owner and was like, man, this kid is phenomenal. He's the hardest worker I've ever seen in my entire time with the company. I think he's going to do great things for us. And the next day he showed up and had a good day, but not as good as his original day. And by the time the end of the week came, he hardly striped any distance on the road. And the foreman came up to him and said, hey man, what happened? Like Monday, I called the owner and I said, this kid is the hardest worker we've had in company history. I think he's going to do amazing things for us. And today you hardly got anything accomplished. And he goes, well, I got further and further away from the bucket. Right. And so he left his core values. He left what he needed to do to be his best person each and every day, way back at where the truck was at, instead of moving the truck and the bucket with him. And so it's the same thing with chiropractic. We get away from our core values with our 33 principles, or however you practice, and then just gets harder and harder and harder to be more and more successful. And so it's really, we leave that behind.
Wow, that's really good. I'm so glad you unpacked that for us. Yeah, this particular gentleman I was talking about made the mistake of introducing a multi-level marketing product into his chiropractic practice.
Yeah.
And he's lost people over it. So let's kind of, if you don't mind, if we could look under the hood of Paul Reed's career to date. because I know that God's not finished with you yet. He's got great things in store for you for your future. We just don't know exactly what that looks like. Probably, we know what it looks like in the next
My
year.
coach just shared that with me minutes ago, so it must be a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, we kind of know that you. I know ChiroFest, that's your baby, and I know
yeah.
you got probably another year and a half where you're at there. But if we could just look under the hood of what you've done there for the benefit of others on this call, because remember, as you know, on this call is going to be we have students tune into these.
Hmm.
We've got veterans that are stuck. And I love
Yeah.
what Dr. Ron said, your coach was on as our guest. And he actually used the word stuck and said, man, no, being aware that you're stuck is actually a good thing that you have the awareness of being stuck. So many people are stuck and they just
True.
don't know they're stuck.
It's
And he
true.
goes, so that state of stuckness is really a good thing if it forces you to take action. If you just sit there and stay stuck and you know you're stuck, then you're going to be miserable. But part of that is if you looked at your journey, give us some real world examples along the way where you had to sit down and, like you said, maybe it was a positive roadblock, which we always think of it as negative, but it's really a positive because it's going to grow you. It's going to grow your character. You're going to persevere. It's going to give you more hope, and people are going to be drawn into you because they watch you navigate that. But what were some of those pivots in your practice where you thought, I need to sit back down again? And maybe it's a good thing, like, hey, this is getting bigger than I dreamed, you know? So kind
Yeah.
of give
Yeah.
us a couple stories where you had to pivot.
Yeah, I'll share two. One that was a positive, and one that was, a learning lesson, which is always a positive because it's just an opportunity to me to refine.
That's right.
The first one is about 10 years into practice when I noticed that we'd have attrition of people that communicate or were commuting too far or what they perceived to be too far to the practice. And so we would, they would get through an initial care plan or whatnot, and then we'd notice that they would trickle off, or we'd lose that practice member somewhere along the line. And so that's when the vision of a second clinic popped in my head. I'm like, hey, let's place an office on the other side of town so that we, could reduce our opportunities or reduce our potential loss of those people dropping out of care just out of pure frustration of having to commute 40 minutes each way. And so that was the first, like, okay, well, recognition, right? Like Ron said, self-awareness, like, okay, what's going on? How can I, what's the solution for this perceived problem? Because it might not, it was just really a perceived problem that I saw that people were having. And then, so our solution was, hey, let's open up another office. The downside of that is like, okay, well, a certain percentage of the practice already lived closer to that practice, right? And so they automatically, well, hey, now that this is an opportunity for us, we're going to go here instead of there. So while it fed one, it cannibalized another practice a little bit. So that, so there's some upsides and downside to that. But again, it was both were opportunities for both practices to grow in it, which is exactly what happened, because we made it easier and more congruent for some people to follow through with care, which opened up, we all have limited time, space, and matter, right? We can only serve so many people. And so it opened up the door for more people to come to the practice that they were closer to in our community of the original practice. A second one, so that would be a first one, whereas, I saw the story of losing people. Second was a practice that I had about 20 miles north. This would have been our fourth practice. At the time, I purchased an existing practice. The doc wanted to move, and so we plugged into this small community. And in the course of 3 years, I had 5 doctors that went through there, and the practice was surviving, but it wasn't thriving. And so, Heidi and I, through quiet time and alignment of congruency, was like, it was more of a distraction, more of an energy leak than anything. We closed it, and which was a huge, I don't like to lose. I don't like to fail.
Yeah.
And closing a practice was like, no, like that means on some form or fashion that I failed. Because I, whatever means, couldn't find the right doctor, wasn't doing the right, whatever. So that would be another one where I was like, okay, this constant struggle, like, where are we out of alignment? What's incongruent with this practice? Because it's just more of a suck or an energy drain and more of a problem than it was, a benefit to us. And so recognizing that and then closing it. And then as soon as we did, like, everything else blossoms and grows, because that energy leak or that whatever was incongruent in your life is suddenly removed, and it gives you an opportunity for the other areas to grow. So
That's really good. Thanks for sharing that.
open one and close one. So
Yeah,
there's
no,
two.
no. I mean, and then even if I could have you, I don't know if you're open to talking a little bit more about where you're at now
Yeah.
and the transitions that you're making in your life now, and also can you help me understand at what point did what you're experiencing now become in your kind of your vision conversation, or were you
Yeah.
always picturing this?
No, I wasn't, honestly. So so long story short, for the folks online, is I had 5 practices, finished with the 4, and then I was acquired by a private equity group, Chiro One, who was purchased by a private equity group that's expanding in the Northwest. I early, one of my best friends that I golfed with regular do and did golf with regularly. He experienced that in his life. His father-in-law at the time, he helped his father-in-law grow a business that was acquired. And when I opened my second office, he's like, and his dad was a dentist as well, and so he had seen it happen in the dental field. He's like, why not, grow a few of these, and maybe there'll be a gobble up, so they call it, where they go around. Somebody's going around and buying these practices up, and I was like, oh, I heard it and I received it, but I was like, well, it's never happened in chiropractic, right? It's never that until as of the last couple of years, that's never been something that's happened in our profession. It's happened a lot in physical therapy world, in the dental world, and in the medical world, where they combine and do group stuff. But anyhow, so that it was always back there, but it was never like, well, it hasn't happened. So I just kept building my dream of serving as many people as possible. And that's really the story behind doing multiples. Like, I can only bend over and adjust so many people a day at a time. If I want the same message delivered to my community that I think is the most important message, I need to recreate doctors that deliver that same type of care and communicate that same messaging. And that's the means behind doing multiple. But then that point did come, in 2019, at the end of 2019. It started in 2018 with Chiro One, started courting me a little bit, and then we closed, in December of 2019, and now I'm doing merger and acquisition stuff for them, where I'm reaching out to doctors and asking if they would like to sell and become part of our expansion.
Love it.
So yeah, so it was really, and I had never envisioned myself in this role. But again, it's I'm just supposed to be willing and obedient, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that's where we're at. So that's kind of under the hood. And then obviously, like I said, my baby's ChiroFest, and that's really the vision of ChiroFest is, again, to it's honor the past and preserve the future. It's really honoring those chiros that came before us, and even some of even close to us that are just now transitioning out of practice and securing the future. My son is scheduled and is going to chiropractic school in the fall. My son-in-law talks about it. So it's like securing the future so that our kids can have what you and I have had for our families, in the sense of principled chiropractic, teaching the above, down, inside out principles, and allowing them to continue to spread that into the future. So yeah.
I love that. And I see that timeline of, obviously chiropractic experience, but then bringing on Coach Ron before you even graduated. So you had this gentleman who's all about legacy. I think all of his kids are chiros, and his wife's a chiro. And, being a real strong man of God like yourself, you're like me in that word legacy is very important to me. And also you said something that hit me, is as great as you could be, and you can see a lot of people, I'm sure, as can I, we could do it. It was the realization of, I'm seeing all these people and I'm still not having that big of an impact on our community and our region. And that's when for me, that's when my vision changed. It was like, oh, wow, my vision was too small. Like I got to enlist other chiropractors. We are in a war here, and I got to enlist other soldiers to help me reach this society that I live in, with the chiropractic lifestyle and all that comes with that, and all the beauty of that, and the lives that are truly being saved. So I appreciate you sharing that. And also, sometimes God has a different vision for you than you can even think at the time, right?
Yeah, 100%. And stuff that we don't even know. Just to touch on that, like I think he puts us in situations to learn certain things. You're going to either help excel or propel us into different areas, or he might be having something happen that we see as a detriment or a failure or something negative, that's he's preventing something from happening to us as well. And so I think there's that hedge of protection continuously. And, again, being self-aware is a key.
Yeah. And as an outsider looking in, the story about closing the practice and churning through associates and the frustration, I think probably at that point in your life, because I went through the same thing, it felt like, man, this is pulling me away from being the leader I need to be to the people on my team right
Yeah.
now. It was exhausting me emotionally. My tank was emptying, and it was starting to affect the two vibrant clinics I had going at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I mean, I'm like you. I'm an athlete. I don't like
Yeah.
to close an office
Yeah.
or
Don't like the roof.
cancel. I hate. Yeah.
Ricky
So
Bobby, you're the
um,
first, you're last.
Ricky Bobby. All right, I love
That's
it. We need a Ricky Bobby reference in there. Um, so if we look at this ultimate vision, and again, we both agree that it may be even God might have something even different for you in that, but He still wants us to cast vision. And so we cast this ultimate vision, and the doc's on the line right now. For you, that might be, gosh, I just want one associate, or maybe I just want a new patient concierge who's not even a chiropractor to free me up during those new patient times so I can see more, and adjust more people. So maybe that's your vision. But I think it's important if we look at vision as the ultimate manifestation, and then we look at mission as our plan to get there, I still feel like purpose is the engine that drives all that. Core values and your purpose are the engine that keeps that mission on track. So has that played out like that for you?
100%, Ron. You're exactly right. But we do have to plan, right? Failing to plan is planning to fail, right? You have to have a plan. You know, everything needs to be. I'm helping a doc right now do a business plan because he's opening his own practice and really has. He's green, doesn't understand, and so you have to cast that out. You have to. How am I gonna, what's my practice look like? What's it smell like? What's the music sound like? How many tables do I have? Do I have x-ray? Do I not have x-ray? Do I have whatever like that you're going to have? And then, okay, well, what's my plan for acquiring new opportunities into the practice? Like, how am I going to do that? Is it screenings? Is it social now? Is it doing advanced talks? How am I going to do that? When that person does come in, what's my communication to help them understand the principles of chiropractic and start care? And then not only start care, but follow through with care, then refer people. And then once they refer, so you have to really lay all it's the foundation, right? It's a foundation of what we do, and the vision and all those things happen because you have that foundation. If you don't have that foundation or the roadmap to where you want to go, and it doesn't mean that you can't pivot, right? Just like I did and you've done, is if the road, if we take a right and ends up being a dead end, we got to either turn around and go back, or we got to take a left or a right. We got to go a different direction. But at the end of the day, doing nothing and not having a vision or a plan is again setting you up for failure. I heard a great story of a guy that said, "Hey, I want to go from, I'm down in southern Washington. I want to get to northern Washington up by Seattle. Well, I can go south and still arrive. It might take me a year, but I can still get there. But it's just you have to do the work, right? You can't
Right.
just show up and have expectations of stuff, just falling into place because you're there. It's faith without deeds, right? I can have all the faith in the world, but if I'm not putting action into it, if I'm not delivering and moving forward, like we're designed to move, we're designed to be ambulatory. Everything has resonance.
Yep.
And so we have to be moving. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would ask you if you were to, so if you looked at 2018 and looked at your organizational chart of your practice and business, was it quite a bit different than what you maybe 10 years prior had dreamed it might
Oh,
look like?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time when we sold, we had 32 employees, I think, within the practices. And I would have never my first year said, "Oh, I'm going to have, how many ever doctors and CAs and massage." I mean, I would have never even, yeah. And so as we evolve as humans, as we grow and mature and we're forged, right? As we're developing ourselves, that vision is going to change. That's why it's so important, as like you'd mentioned earlier, to be self-aware of those roadblocks and those getting stuck, right? I got stuck. Like, well, okay, well, I can only, like we said, I can only adjust so many people. Well, how do I get out of this rut? Okay, well, I need first hired my first doc, 2 years in a practice. Like, that's going to help free me up to, she can help with exams and adjust some overflow. Okay, well, now we're at this tipping point. Well, how do we grow? Okay, we open a second practice. Like, so you're going to get into those ruts. And if you're again, open and self-aware, you'll find a solution to move you beyond that. So
That's amazing. Yeah. And remaining fixed within all of that were your core values and your
mm,
purpose, your why never changed, your core values never changed. The
yeah,
circumstances around you changed, and therefore you had to adapt your vision and even your mission plan a little bit too, whether it be hiring, more training,
yeah,
onboarding
yep,
practices that you didn't have to consider before. It's a lot more that
yeah.
goes to it with 32
Yeah.
people than 3 people.
Yep. And then I think being, the other thing for docs is being humble and delegating things that you are not good at, like knowing that there's somebody that's smarter at you at something in the room. And if not, find somebody that is and bring them onto your team. So again, it keeps you in alignment with what you're good at and allow them to, fulfill something that they're good at and everybody grows. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a key word is the humility, and I know that's that ties into your core values and mine as well, and it's based
Yeah.
partly on our belief system and our faith, but I think for docs out there is to have maintain that spirit of humility. So if
Yeah.
we, back to this engine driving, gosh, outside of coaching and going to seminars, how are these doctors out in the field by themselves with no accountability? I mean, it seems like it's easy for that why to kind of slip a little bit sometimes, isn't it?
It is, and that's why I think again you got to keep that paint bucket near and dear. Whether it's, like you said, going to seminars. I think you need to do that regularly. I think you need to have maybe not. Some people call it accountability group,
Yeah.
a circle of influence, people
Hmm.
within your your core 5 or 6 or 10 docs that are in your area that you can bounce questions off of, and if something comes up, you can lean on. I think you need to. I think you need to have a core group of people. Then I think you need to continuously invest in yourself and personal development, and growth, and understanding. You know, all components of life. I think our practices or any business is a reflection of the owner, and the cleaner the owner's house is, the more in order it is, the more in order the business is. And so, I mean, I think pouring into yourself, personal development or staying in the green book, staying true to your
Yeah.
principle, whatever it might be, whatever got you into chiropractic will help facilitate keeping you engaged and aligned and whatnot. And like, Gretzky says, you got to skate to where the puck's at. Things are always changing,
Yeah.
right? We got to,
Yeah.
we got to predict where that puck's going and skate to where it's going to be and not, stay where we're at. So,
So as you look at going from 3 to 33 employees, um, that's a lot, right? So you
yeah.
start looking
Yeah.
at that going, wow, there's a lot to that of spending some time on defining each role within the practice and what personality types best fit that role
Mm,
so that when you go out and hire, you're not just going from your gut. You have this massive layer of objectivity in there. So when they finally land on Dr. Paul's lap at that level, he can now obviously go with his gut more, knowing they fit the avatar, they fit the job description, they got the energy level I need them to have. Then you
yeah.
meet with them, and so how did that evolve in your career?
It evolved was the exact thing. Like it was a continuous work in progress. Um, Blessed to have my wife is great at reading people. She did a lot of, I would do like our initial group interviews, and then we'd bring people in for individual interviews. And she, that was really because of Heidi. Like
Yeah,
she had a great read for people. Again, so right there, it was recognition. Like I'm okay at this, but she's really
yeah,
good at it. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna allow her to do it because,
right.
it just decreases pain points down the road. If they're better, hire slow, fire fast.
That's
I
right.
was told by a coach one time. And so really making sure it's the right person for the right role at the right time, not
Yeah,
only for you, but for them.
right.
Um, yeah, there's lots to go into, but yeah, it was a continuous work in progress, and we all grow over it or grow with it as we're, you know, adding people to our team.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It definitely stretches you as a leader, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I would say that that's probably the biggest pain point of expansion is the HR role. Like just people. It's the biggest hurdle in any business that I've
Yeah, and you
experienced.
mentioned all the rights. The right person, obviously, and then the
Yeah.
right role. And I'm again going back to a guy I've been talking with lately. He has zero definition in job descriptions written for any role in his practice. He's just more of a chiro man, kind of
Yeah.
organic, And I'm
That's tough.
going, man, he's churning through CAs. So that was my first advice was, man, you got to write out some really clean job descriptions.
Vegetables are organic and they're also perishable. So you better
Yeah.
put some things in order.
That's a good point, man. One more step on this is, as you look at where you've been and where you are, and you look back at the importance that your teams played, because you said something very interesting to me is, as the leader of your company, you're not expected to be great at everything, but your team is.
Yeah. And that comes from self-awareness. Again, finding, we all have weaknesses and we all have strengths, and finding those strengths and helping people strengthen their strengths, and then finding people that, where their weaknesses, somebody that's a strength for them, and allowing them to, express who they are in that role. Yeah.
Wow. There's so much to talk about, buddy. We can keep going on, but I think the goal of this podcast, and you've hit it perfect, is to realize who's listening and what can we do to help them grow and help them expand chiropractic to more households. There is no competition in chiropractic, as we know.
No.
I think as far as legacy, I think you've done a great job. I mean, I don't know how many docs you had on your team right now. What are you at?
Right now with Chiro One, in my region down here in Vancouver, we have 8 offices right now.
Okay. That's exciting. So before you sold, you probably had 5 or 6, right?
I had my 4, yeah.
Your
and
4.
Then we're expanding. We have another 6 or 7 we've opened or bought in Seattle, and so the Northwest is growing. They've gone from 40 clinics to 86 clinics, I think, throughout the country.
Now, is your role right now more to coach and to be that true north or that anchor for some of these guys?
So I'm still coaching a little bit with the docs, but I'd say the majority I'm doing is M&A stuff, merger and acquisition. So there's guys like Ron that want to are interested in becoming part of our team. I communicate with them and
got it.
Go through that stuff. Yeah.
No, that's super exciting. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely, brother.
We could do a whole seminar on this, but any last little pearls of wisdom you would have for docs out there who are right in the middle of their goal setting and their vision exercises?
I think going back to the paint bucket, keep your core values as close to you as you can when making any decision, whether it's personally or professionally, and that will serve you well. And it might not look like it at the time. It might be a little bit slower than you want, but just hold your line, right? And know that the upside will come.
I love it, man. And good old fashioned hard work, right?
Exactly. Do the work.
Remind me, you were a tackle, weren't you?
I was a center.
Yeah, you were a center out of the shotgun, huh?
We were about 50-50 up under center and
that's
shotgun.
awesome. Yeah. So you were basically the quarterback of the O-line.
Yep.
That's exciting. Well, it's certainly played out in practice. Chiropractic's better because you decided to become a chiropractor, brother.
Thank you, brother.
I greatly appreciate you. I consider you just such a close friend in chiropractic and in the Lord. So, hey, for those of you that tuned in today, I know you had a great time with this one. This one is so rich, so full of information. And I want to make sure, if you haven't been to a ChiroFest event, it is by far my favorite event. I go every year. I don't care if it's in Coeur d'Alene or Boise, wherever, I'm going to that one. I just love the feel of it. There's always inspirational speakers there, the fellowship and the hanging out in between speakers. You just can't beat it. So that was my shameless plug for ChiroFest this year.
Thank you.
It's in Boise. What weekend is that?
September 16 and 17. Okay. Always close to anniversary weekend. Yep.
Oh, I love it. So, and it used to be called what? Big Top?
Year 1 was Big Top. Yes. Yeah.
That was in a tent. Wow. I never got to be in the tent. I came after the tent.
That's good memory. Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
13
So
years
anyway, I greatly appreciate you. And like I said, docs that are out there listening in, you're never going to regret time spent on personal development. And right now, end of Q1, middle of Q2, whatever, you have to sit down and, for your team's sake, for your community's sake, spend some time writing out your vision, writing out your goals, make them specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. We call them SMART goals, but make sure you do that. And then also spend time on your why. Go away by yourself or your spouse. Get out in nature. Do something to clear your head, get away from the practice, and begin to write down your why. And then the mission plan will come to you with hard work, man. And so, Paul, I appreciate you. I also want to tell ChiroTouch how much I appreciate them. not only for allowing me to host this podcast, but just for the spirit in this, that ChiroTouch basically is looking at how can we help the profession reach their full potential. And that's why we're doing these podcasts. So once again, thank you, ChiroTouch. And we can't wait to see you for our next episode. And again, thank you, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother. Thank you.